Welcome to the Reddit library. Today we'll be looking at r/AskReddit, where the user the Captain Swag asks the question, lawyers of Reddit, what's the worst way you've seen a person screw over someone else in court, whether it be criminal, civil, or divorce proceedings? Represented a guy that stole 3 trucks from his work. Only 2 were recovered before trial. He showed up to a motion hearing in the 3rd one. I took my ex to court because she had used my social security number to sign up for cable. I found out about it when she stopped paying for the service. She screwed herself over by just being herself. We show up to court. I turn in the contract from the cable company, showing my social security number and her own name signed on the contract. She didn't even try to forge my signature. She signed her own name and tried to deny that she had any part of it. The judge tore her apart, and it was nice. Not someone else, but my client screwed themselves. I'm doing landlord-tenant stuff, and my client was facing eviction over non-payment. But the client was withholding rent payments because of habitability issues in the apartment. No heat, high lead levels, vermin. This is going to be an easy win for me. Told my client continually to make sure they don't spend the money. Keep it, but don't spend it, because if you show the judge you still have the money, it looks real good for you in terms of making the judge believe that you're withholding for good reasons. We get up in front of the judge. Landlord doesn't have an attorney, so I'm dancing inside. There's no way I can lose. I make my arguments, and the landlord makes his. Judge asks my client if they have the money. Client goes, nah, I blew that hit at the casino last week. My wife is the lawyer. Info. When children reach the age of majority, if they do not continue studying and start working, it is not necessary to pay alimony. Info. My wife's client found a new lover, which unleashed the wrath of the ex-wife, who started asking for more alimony for her children. Well, to win the case, it was necessary to prove that the children were working, but they could not get any proof of it. There was not much chance of winning, but they still went to court hoping that with the interrogations they could find information that will put them in evidence. On the day of the trial, the children did not go. Only the mother and her lawyer were present. Judge. Madam, tell me why your children could not come. Mom. They could not get permission at work. Judge. Lawyer. Mom. Another few seconds of silence. Judge. Well, that was fast. The fact that you can't force your parents to pay for college unless they're divorced has always made me think that someone should make a movie about it. Basically, the reverse parent trap. Trying to get mom and dad to divorce so you can have the courts force dad to contribute to your college tuition. I had a client who was trying to get away from an abusive ex and filed for a restraining order. He shows up to the final hearing and is making a big fuss about a truck that they bought during their marriage. He said it was just his, and she had no rights to it because their marriage was void. I asked him on cross-examination what he meant by that, and he said that he had already been married in another state when he married my client. He said that my client had no idea, but that it means that their marriage is invalid and the truck was all his. Not only is that legally inaccurate, the transcript of the hearing was promptly turned over to the police, who were actively investigating him for bigamy. Oh. And the judge gave my client the truck along with a 2-year no-contact order. Need a life, but... A friend kept meticulous records of how much time his estranged wife spent with their daughter. He used pink highlighter for mom and blue highlighter for himself. Mom sailed into arbitration demanding full custody and handsome child support in the house. Dad pulled out 3 years worth of year-long calendars. Mom had spent less than a full month with the child in 3 years. Mom was not happy with the outcome. Maybe a dumb question, but how are the calendars verified to be true? You'd be surprised. Not divorce related, but a previous coworker, we're civil engineers, had a case where the only thing that made it not a he said she said situation was he kept a phone log with short summaries of what was decided. It basically was, he's got a log that he's willing to swear by, was written the day of the call that says you approve this change. Do you have anything else to the opposite? A witness for the plaintiff in a civil suit, who was a coworker of the plaintiff, testified very strongly against the company and in favor of the plaintiff. I questioned her about bias toward the plaintiff, if they knew each other well, were friends, etc. She said, no, just friendly coworkers, work friends at best. I pinned her to it. When I got a chance to cross-examine the plaintiff, she had no choice but to burn her witness credibility, because not only were they very close friends, but they had become sisters-in-law just a few years before. No, they did not have the same last name or anything, but I had done my homework. I still don't get why people want to fight small bias by destroying their credibility, but it happens more than you'd think. Am lawyer, saw someone screw himself. I work as a public servant in a criminal law judge's office, and since I have a law degree, I don't normally do administrative work, though I get to be with the judge in some of the hearings. Last month, we had a huge drug trafficking case. I'm talking about 20 or more people involved, months of investigation, undercover agents, videos, audio, the whole ordeal. Hearing lasted about 3 days. Anyway, when it was time for one of the defendants to be on the stand so the prosecutor could read the charges he was accusing him of, he was pleading not guilty, as he very loudly stated from the majority of the hearing up until my boss, the judge, told him to shut up or he would be admonished, to which he replied, "What are you gonna do, arrest me?" Which, to be honest, was actually a bit funny. The prosecutor, as part of the facts of his case, told him that he was being accused of selling, trafficking, and carrying X amount of X drugs, with the base of his operations being his house, where he lived with his partner. Mind you, said partner wasn't even in the hearing. She wasn't arrested or anything, as there was nothing tying her to the case. He said, "Wait up, I was the one selling the drugs. She didn't do anything." His lawyer, a state-assigned public lawyer, facepalmed so hard it's actually recorded in the audio of the hearing. He still pleaded not guilty. I am being sparse on details here due to confidentiality, but I had a client who was accused of a very nasty sexual offense. He had an alibi. He was at work, where he was the boss. He had an employee who could absolutely vouch for his being there. I talked to the employee. Employee confirmed this. It gets closer to the trial, and around the time when I need to send in an alibi notice, which is advance notice to the Crown so that they can investigate the alibi and determine whether or not it's true. But I am being careful, so I call the employee up again. Turns out my client fired him in the interim, and so the employee quite candidly tells me, "Oh yeah, he was definitely at work, but that's not what I'll say in court. Frick that guy, he's going down." I did not call him as a witness or file the alibi notice. Still won the trial, but if I hadn't thought to call the guy, or if he'd been less candid, my client could have been fricked hard. Sex offender registry, jail time, the works, completely innocent. He's the boss and stupid enough to fire his alibi witness before the trial? Smiley face. Too many criminal client situations to count of them screwing themselves over. One of the very few family law cases I handled as a young addie sticks out to me though. Young woman and young man have child. Young woman seeks divorce from young man because he enjoys the thug life. He had recently been arrested and charged for possession with intent to distribute meth, felony, and in possession of a firearm, unlawful carry. Young man doesn't like her leaving him. He hires a local big-name top divorce addie, granted very rural area, gets temp divorce order entered saying she cannot have overnight guests of the opposite sex, common in rural conservative areas. Think it's mostly a thing of the past in more urban places. Young woman starts seeing someone new. Young man is very upset about this. Has his fancy lawyer ask for a hearing accusing her of violating court order and seeking full custody on top of addie fees. Young woman, on advice from a mutual friend, hires me for this hearing. I sit down with opposing counsel, and she basically tries to strong-arm me with her experience and lays out egregious terms. Mother must not only give up primary custody, but have visitation with the supervisor and pay child support and addie fees. She knows I'm a new baby attorney in town, fairly certain I had been licensed for less than a year. I balk, and she says she'll see us in court. I go into hearing with a copy of his probation arrangement on his possession with intent to sell and unlawful carry. He hasn't told his attorney about this and she is unaware. She calls him up, establishes how my client had her new boyfriend over on XYZ nights. Judge is very conservative and is not pleased. Then opposing counsel passes the witness. I ask him if he has a job. No, what do you do for money? Things here and there. Oh, Miss Opposing Counsel is awfully expensive. Do you sell meth? What? Have you ever sold drugs to make ends meet? No. Introduce copy of his guilty plea and straight probation sentencing. Judge is now staring daggers at him. I lean over to my client sitting next to me and whisper, "If you took a drug test today, be honest, would you be completely clean?" Yes. I ask the young man, "When was the last time you did meth?" Attorney objects, but judge overrules. I know this judge will drug test people on the spot as he is also the misdemeanor drug court judge. It's been years, I'm clean. So if you were tested, you'd be clean. Yes. Opposing counsel asks the same of my client. We agree. Judge has them both tested. He tests positive for meth. My client is clean. Judge denies his motion and asks me to send in new temp orders where young man is required to maintain employment and start paying child support and places him on supervised visits. Icing on the cake, opposing counsel actually calls me and leaves me a voicemail congratulating me on, and I quote, handing her ass to her for the first time in a long time. That last part is nice. Your opponent didn't take it personally and even showed respect. Nice. Sitting waiting for my client and the judge is giving a mass colloquy for an alternative program on a DUI, basically probation. Question: has anyone consumed alcohol or taken drugs in the last 24 hours? Obvious answer aside, one dude proudly raises his hand and said, "I smoked some dope last night." He did not get probation. Do you know anybody that screwed themselves in a courtroom? Leave it in the comments below and it might be featured in an upcoming video. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos from the library.